Hello and welcome to Rio's Positive POV. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button so you get updated when videos are uploaded. I've seen a lot of these videos floating about on YouTube and I thought I wanted to throw my 2 cents in. I'm going to give you my top 10 comic book movies of all time. Let's go. Coming in at number 10, we have Spider-Man II. Spider-Man II is the second movie in the Sam Raimi trilogy, which featured Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. The movie is by far the best Spider-Man movie to come out to this date. Doc Ock is truly a spectacular villain and is just a class above every other villain from the Spider-Man movies that have been released so far. The special effects are also just unbelievable. The scene where Doc Ock is actually being created is probably my second favourite comic book scene of all time, and this film just has to be on the list. Coming in at number 9, we have Captain America and the Winter Soldier. It is the second movie from the Captain America trilogy, and in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the first movie that the Russo brothers got their grubby little hands on. It is my favourite of the Captain America movies. It is very gritty, it's more real life than the rest of the Marvel movies. It's definitely much more grounded, and Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier, is just great in this. He steamrolls through every single person in his sight, and for that reason the violence puts this one at number 9. Coming in at number 8, we have Avengers Endgame. Me, like many other people in the cinema, lost my shit multiple times throughout this film. Captain America telling the Avengers to assemble, and when he started wielding Thor's hammer, were just absolute fan service sick moments. There was a few fan service moments which I didn't like that I'm not going to get into, but this movie was just a whole load of fun. It was everything you'd expect from a Hollywood blockbuster and is one of the best comic book movies of all time. In the 7th spot, we have Deadpool. Deadpool for me was such a fresh breath of air in a saturated genre when it came out. Ryan Reynolds is absolutely perfect as Wade Wilson, a role he was just born to play. The R rating for me is what made this film. The blood and violence was top level. I just, as you can probably tell, really enjoy violent films. The violence in films stops me from being an absolute lunatic in the real world. So thank you, Deadpool, for giving me that little bit of violence that I really, really need. So Deadpool is by far one of the easiest choices to put on this list. There's a few moments in it that I didn't enjoy that were a little bit too much. The breaking the fourth wall is a little bit too much for me. That is one of the only reasons it's not higher up on my list. In 6th place, I've put Kick-Ass. This Matthew Vaughn directed comic book movie was something which I had never seen before in terms of the style and the aesthetic of the film. It felt very much like I was reading a comic book while watching the movie. Aaron Taylor Johnson, it was his breakout performance, but the two people who really stole the show was Nicolas Cage as Big Daddy and Chloe Grace Moretz as Hit Girl. She was a teenager superhero, basically, who had a potty mouth. She was using some words you would normally hear on an English football terrace and was something which was so fresh and so new, and I think the critics at the time didn't know what to think of the movie because it was just so left field. And for me, it is just a truly great movie and one which can be enjoyed on multiple watches. In 5th place, I have put 300. 300 is a film which was directed by Zack Snyder. It is adapted from a Frank Miller comic and was a movie which was absolutely hated by critics when it came out. Me, I think the film is unfucking believable. The movie literally kicks off with Gerard Butler as Leonidas kicking a Persian messenger down a well of darkness, screaming, "This is Sparta." The moment is iconic, and the film is just... it's just fun. Again, it's bloody, it's violent, it felt fresh, it was original. It, again, like Kick-Ass, felt like a comic book script being rolled out in front of me, and it was a perfect movie for what it was. It was not meant to be an Oscar award-winning type of movie. It was meant to be a fun, enjoyable movie, which comic book movies should be. Sometimes they take themselves a little bit too serious, and that's the downfall for a lot of them. 300 doesn't do that. It knows what it is, and what it is unfucking believable. Coming in at number 4. At number 4, I have put Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. This movie never felt sluggish at all. It was over in an instant. It was a movie that I don't remember starting and don't remember finishing. It was very quick pace. It was witty. It was colourful, enjoyable. The added video game elements were great. I felt they added some serious touches onto the movie. Edgar Wright was the perfect person to direct this. If you've seen his filmography and have watched the TV program Space that he directed, you'll know that this is his style. The quick cuts, the fast pace is just what he's known for and what he's really good at, and I think they work to an absolute T here. Coming in at number 3. At number 3, I have put Blade. Half human, half vampire. Wesley Snipes stars as Blade, the vampire hunter, and is another person who was just born to play the role. I know the movie is being rebooted and Mahershala Ali is playing Blade. I really, really look forward to seeing what he can do and seeing how he can differentiate his performance from Wesley's, because Wesley Snipes was impeccable in this, but Mahershala Ali is also one of my favourite actors working at the moment, so I'm excited to see the reboot. Back to this movie though. Stephen Dorff as Deacon Frost is also great in this. He puts on a really good performance, a solid performance to go against Wesley Snipes. The bloodbath scene is one of my all-time favourite scenes in any film. The cinematography, the added aspect of the blood, the rave scene, the music on top of it is just iconic. And yes, it is in my top 5 scenes of all time. This is a movie which was way ahead of its time and kind of kicked off the comic book movie era, and is definitely one which deserves a spot in my top 3. Okay, so my runner-up, my number 2 comic book movie of all time is Guardians of the Galaxy, now known as Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. It was the movie that introduced us to the cosmic side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. James Gunn directed a visually stunning movie. It is a great movie from start to finish. It introduced us to a bunch of new characters who were just so obscure that most people, apart from your proper comic book readers, had no clue about. It had a star-studded cast. Every single person in the movie puts in an absolute shift, from Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, to Vin Diesel and Bradley Cooper, who lent their voice works to Groot and Rocket. It was an unbelievable film. The highlight for me was the soundtrack. I thought the soundtrack was just A1. It's up there with some of my favourite soundtracks of all time. A movie which was visually stunning. The aesthetic was so bright. It was very much, again, comic book. It felt like an enjoyable movie from start to finish, and is my runner-up in my top 10 comic book movies of all time. Okay, so number 1. My number 1 comic book movie of all time, Green Lantern. An absolute... No, I'm joking. Sorry, no, my number 1 movie of all time, of course, it's very easy. It's an easy choice for me. It is a very easy choice. It is, of course, The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight for me is just head and shoulders above any other comic book movie. It is one of the greatest movies of all time. Heath Ledger puts on an iconic performance as the Joker. He is probably one of the best antagonists to ever grace a movie screen. A performance which we're not going to see something like that again. There was so many small touches that he added to the character that I just thought were unbelievable. The movie I watched back in 2008 on the opening day in an IMAX theatre, and was the single best cinema experience I have ever had. It was just a movie that I walked out of and was like, fuck me, I absolutely love movies. Like, it's one of the movies that just made me feel, I don't know, it made me feel something inside when I watched it. I know that seems weird, but all my movie lovers will know exactly what I'm talking about. Christopher Nolan, his whole trilogy was very grounded. It gave a different feel to the comic book movies. Christian Bale, to me, is the best Batman, and I thought he shined in this. Harvey Dent is played by Aaron Eckhart, and he puts on a great performance as a secondary villain throughout half of the film. And again, it's a movie which had unreal cinematography. The score was perfect. There's just nothing I would change about that movie. A movie which I've seen 20, 25, 30 times at least. And it is a movie which I will probably be watching until the end of time. I'm actually going to watch it in a couple of days in IMAX again because the movie theaters around me have opened up again, but they're not showing no movies. So I'm kind of happy about that. Thank you, coronavirus. That's all for my top 10 list of my favorite comic book movies of all time. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what films you like in the comic book movie universe. I'll be happy to know your thoughts.